Ever since I moved to Singapore a few months ago, I had to leave all of my coffee gear back home, except my AeroPress and this Rhinoware ceramic burr grinder. I bought this back when uniformity of grind just wasn't a concern to me, and it's just your basic grinder that does an okay job, akin to other popular entry-level ceramic burr hand grinders, like those produced by Hario, for example. Now, there are design flaws such as the loose grinder adjustments and the too easy to remove grounds catcher, but nothing I couldn't really live with. My philosophy when it comes to coffee is that investing in really good coffee beans and a decent burr grinder pretty much gets you 80 if not 90% of the way there. But what does that extra few percent taste like? And how much do you need to spend to get there? That's the question that I would like to explore today. How much improvement can I expect to get with just a small grinder upgrade? And by small, I mean monetarily speaking. This Rhinoware's grinder cost me about $35 if I remember correctly, and it has served me well. Now, using it on this coffee produced an enjoyable cup. With a splash of milk, I could pick out in the aftertaste the flavor of strawberry milk, a taste that I am very familiar with. Now, is there more than that though? Am I missing out on anything? My heart told me to get the Comandante Mark IV, but my head and my wallet told me to go with the entry-level Timemore Chestnut instead, which cost me about $60. So almost double of the Rhinowares, but still pretty dang cheap. Now, what made me want to get the Timemore, besides its excellent pricing, is the fact that they now offer the C3 model, which is equipped with the S2C660 stainless steel burrs, the geometry of which, from my understanding, follows that of their higher-end grinders, only differing in material. Compared to the standard stainless steel burr found in the C2 model, it promises better uniformity, body, and flavor clarity in the cup. Now, on paper, both the Comandante and the Timemore is a better grinder, but in reality, it's only a worthwhile investment if I can actually taste the improvement. Now, it may be a bit presumptuous to assume that I, a 1 cup a day coffee drinker that enjoys trying out new coffee beans, like this Elevate series from Cloudcatcher Roastery, have a palate that's developed enough to actually taste that improvement. So, going with the Timemore is really just me making the safer decision. First impressions is that the packaging is great for something so cheap. You get a nice storage bag, a manual, a brush, and of course, the grinder itself. Now, it's got some heft to it, which I really like, and the texture is great. I would imagine that it'll make it much easier to grip with when grinding. The fact that the grounds catcher is screwed on is awesome. I don't have to worry about accidentally yanking it off mid-grinding, and I like that the grinder adjustment is metal, not plastic. And this part is when I first felt how smoothly the burr rotates. The clicks are solid, stays in place. It is very satisfying and reassuring. Moving it to the 0 point, i.e. the point where the burr wouldn't rotate freely, and then going 7 or 8 clicks coarser gets you to the recommended espresso setting. The manual explicitly states that you shouldn't grind finer than that as it could affect the burr sharpness. Shout out to Cloudcatcher Roastery in Malaysia, one of my favorite places to get roasted coffee beans from, mainly because they almost always have on sale coffees that have been processed via the carbonic maceration, which to me always produces coffee that is very funky and fruit forward, which I absolutely love. Now this is a washed Kenyan, which tells me that I should expect a cleaner cup compared to one that is naturally processed. Now, let's compare the grounds first, shall we? Okay, first at the finest setting. For Rhinowares, it's just 1 click after 0, and then 7 for Timemore. Right off the bat, the grinding experience is much more enjoyable on the Timemore. It's both smoother and faster. The grounds from the ceramic burr is overall finer and more powdery, but you can tell that it's not uniform because there's a graininess to it, which I suspect is coming from the boulders. It feels like there are less fines from the S2C burrs and higher uniformity as it feels smooth in between the fingers. at a coarser setting of 5 clicks for the Rhinowares and then 13 for the Timemore. Again, a similar experience, with the Timemore being way more smoother and faster when it comes to grinding.
Wow. That's it.
The lack of uniformity in the grounds coming from the ceramic burrs are much more apparent here. You could see and feel some huge boulders surrounded by powdery fines. In contrast, the S2C burrs produced grounds that are way more uniform, with the absence of huge boulders and fines. But the next question is, how does this translate taste-wise in the cup? Will I be able to taste the difference? Okay, so right up front, this is by no means scientific, but I did the best I could. What I did was ground 12 grams of coffee at 4 clicks for the Rhinowares and then 13 for the Timemore. I decided to go 1 click finer for the Rhinowares to avoid producing too much of those massive boulders. There were still some though, but now there are even more fines, it seems. The lack of uniformity makes it very difficult to eyeball a grind setting that is comparable with the Timemore, so I'm just gonna go proceed with this one. I'd rather have a cup that's a bit too over extracted than under extracted. And by the way, it took me 27 seconds to finish grinding with the Timemore and just over a minute with the Rhinowares. I poured in 200 grams of water off the boil and let it sit for 10 minutes. I tried to see if I could smell a difference, but honestly, I couldn't. When it comes to taste, the S2C burrs produced a clean and well-balanced cup with mild acidity and sweetness, kind of like stone fruit. The aftertaste is excellent, with floral notes coming out without much bitterness, if at all. As for the ceramic burrs though, that stone fruit flavor is still there, but it is accompanied with tart citrus-like acidity and a drying and slightly bitter aftertaste. You could argue that's the lemon flavor coming out, but I prefer the more balanced cup from the Timemore. So the Timemore wins in terms of experience and taste, and I recommend it as an upgrade if what you currently have is a cheap ceramic burr grinder, but I wanted to do just one more test for myself. Since the ceramic burrs produced a tasty cup with this particular coffee, could it be even better with the Timemore? I've got only 9 grams left, so let's just go with it and see what happens. I poured in about 90 grams of water here and started pressing after 2 minutes. The cup was sweet with a prominent strawberry note. What's great is that the bitterness is much more controlled. I could probably dial in sweeter by going coarser, but then adding that splash of milk really made a difference. It really is like drinking strawberry milk. It's absolutely lovely. Well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.